This episode is brought to you by ThinkNear. Their location score platform delivers the most accurate location targeting available on mobile. Visit them at locationscore.com. And by Pollen. Access your App Store revenues faster and fund user acquisition straight away. To sign up, go to pollen.vc. Wasn't very strong back then. So we started with desktop notifications. Now we moved into mobile device notifications, whether that's on your iPad or your smartphone or whatever it might be. And now all of a sudden, watch has been out for quite some time. I'm wearing a Pebble. I get notifications on my Pebble. But for what has captured the imagination of the planet right now, at least the industrialized planet that can afford $10,000 for a watch, is the Apple Watch. And I heard some amazing things at South by Southwest from you guys throughout your mobile Saturday, as well as through Retail Loco. But you talk about this concept now, and this is where we shifted over to this whole idea of the watch and the impact that the watch is going to have on the way that we are notified and the way that we leverage the device, but through our wrist. Can you talk about what it is that your theory around the watch as the remote control for everything?
Yeah. I mean, it's just this, if you think about it now, I think one of the things that's most exciting about the watch is this idea that it is a remote control back to, the smartphone, right? The iPhone. And that's been, people, there's pros and cons. Some people are pro that, other people are con. They don't think that's enough value. But I'm bullish on it because I do think that these new experiences are going to become so useful, such time savers, that it's going to be another massive game changer in ways that we can't imagine today. We sit here now, we think we get the model, like, oh, we get it. It's a notification on a watch, great, it's a smaller screen. But what's going to happen as a result is, again, it's going to be a quantum change in terms of how we interact with these things. And the things that will happen are things we're not even imagining yet. Things like, didn't even know I needed that, but now that I have it, don't ever take it away. And so, this idea that, kind of like back when television started and it was like 4 channels, it wasn't a big deal. But then the remote control was invented in the 60s, believe it or not, and it wasn't even very well adopted in the early days because it didn't do much. But what really happened is, without the remote control and the potential, there would be no cable, economy. There would be no idea of, hundreds of channels, and everything we know as the current television experience, would never have happened because the remote control was the thing that made that all possible. If you had to literally sit there and crank the channel to get through the 400 channels, You
imagine a big dial, right? Like, oh.
2 dials. I can do it simultaneously. I get really good at it. Right?
101, 100. Yeah, that'd be terrible.
So imagine that, right? But and I always say, well, how often do you touch your television versus how often you touch your remote? Guess what? Nobody touches their TV. I mean, you touch it the day you plug it in,
and that's it.
Touch it the day you swap it out for the next big TV. That's about it, right? And so, this idea of what we do is we work with the remote control. And that's what I think is going to be the power of the watch, is going to be the remote control for our lives, for everything we're doing. And the brands that get it are the ones that are starting to think about that, like Arlie at Starwood, right? Where they're thinking about, how do we use the watch to unlock your door?
Right.
That is an amazing experience, and things like that are going to be the big game changers. And so what this means potentially is consumers won't even think about app clutter, right? The idea like, oh, I don't want to download another app, because I might download an app because I'm only dealing with it in a remote control setting on my device. And so, I don't know how many television channels I have at home right now, which is kind of funny. Like, when I was a kid, I could have told you exactly how many channels I have, but I have no idea how many channels I get at home because it's irrelevant. Because I know I can sit down and curate through the remote control. So, I may download an app, and if that app does a good job, I'll let them reach out and serve me at whatever point it makes sense, and I'll keep it there. But again, if it doesn't do it in the right way, then I'll shut it down. So this is, my belief is this is a completely new interaction model that we've never seen before, that, 5 years from now, it's going to be something so fundamental to everybody that we'll laugh about the idea that there were skeptics about wearables, that there were skeptics about watches having value. And it's Apple Watch, it's Android Wear, it's Pebble. I think, Pebble has been amazing in terms of what they've innovated around this whole industry. And there's other folks there. These guys are the early pioneers that are going to change, the entire way that we deal with all the brands that matter to us in our lives.